Hey everyone, today I have something a little bit different. I'm going to do the first of my live reviews, but before I start I want to explain a couple of things. Firstly, everyone will have a different opinion on live shows, purely because certain people enjoy different things. For example, me personally, I love smaller shows with tons of energy and loads of sweaty people, but I know loads of people who much prefer large shows, big production, lots of fireworks, that sort of thing. In these reviews, I am going to try and accurately describe shows and then give my opinion on that. Secondly, my score for each band will only be a representation of my personal level of enjoyment of that band's performance. Nothing else. Lastly, I just want to make a quick point about live shows in general. Personally, I enjoy live shows a hell of a lot more than I do listening to bands on record. This means scores for my live shows are going to be higher than my album scores. However, I will try as hard as I can to eliminate that bias, but I can only try, right? I also think it's better to see a band present their songs how they wish them to be viewed, and they are completely different things to records, and I don't want you guys to sort of take a score for a record and take a score for a live show and compare them. You can't. They're two totally different things. Okay, now that's cleared up, onto the review. So, on the 19th of October 2012, or 2 days ago depending on when you're watching this, I went to see Gallows, supported by Feed the Rhino and Brotherhood Lake, at the Underworld in Camden. Doors opened at 7, it was a fairly rainy day. I met my mate and we went into the Underworld. He was waiting for me in Camden. But anyway, we got inside the venue and stood around for a little bit while it was still filling out during Brotherhood of the Lake. The band came on around 7:30, and to begin with they had a couple of sound issues, which was unfortunate for them. However, fairly early into that, these got cleared up. So the sound guy did a great job, credit to him. Now, they sounded like a metalcore band with a slightly more intense sound than most metalcore bands, really. I have heard of this band, but only slightly, and I've only listened to a few of their songs. I don't really remember their sound, so that's the only reason I'm mentioning it live. Now, as I mentioned, this band had a slightly more intense sound than most metalcore bands. They utilised things like feedback and a lot of distortion. Also, some ever so slightly mathcore technicalities in there, which was really nice and added a bit of a mix to things. They played a fairly tight set, however I felt like the band didn't really give that much energy and there wasn't that much movement. Also, I felt like the frontman wasn't really that charismatic or anything like that. He was just kind of a standard frontman that stood there, growled, walked about a bit, and that was really it. I will say it picked up towards the end of their set, and the last two songs they played sounded great. The next band up, Feed the Rhino, I made an introduction video earlier on today for them, and I've, like I mentioned in that video, seen them before, and they're a band who to me always improve whenever I see them live. Weirdly enough, they walked on during a song that they had chosen to play through the speakers and the PA, and it was a breakbeat song, which is kind of an electronic music genre. I found that kind of odd, but it was kind of nice too. As the band all came on and sort of looked at the crowd, jumped about a bit and warmed up, that sort of thing, the guitars, bass and drums quickly struck a note, and the frontman was rallying the crowd, encouraging everyone to move forwards and really trying to hype everyone up. And from the word go, I must admit this is the most I've ever seen a crowd with Feed the Rhino. There was a lot of people there who were really into them from the word go. But to back that up, they had a ton of energy, played a super tight set, played very loud and aggressive as well. Guitarists, frontman, bassist, constantly diving in the crowd. It was very much a traditional Feed the Rhino show. It was just a frontal assault of a show. The frontman had the crowd in the palm of his hand for the entire show, really amping them up and making sure everyone was involved. He ran around demanding circle pits, walls of death, stage diving, all the classic sort of thing you'd see at a hardcore show. And like I said in my introductory video, every single one of the members of this band just give it their absolute all for every show, and this was no exception whatsoever. Like I said, I felt they'd stepped it up again. To end their set, they basically just finished a song and then created as much noise as they can, hanging guitars and the bass over or near the audience and allowing them to just slap about, strum or whatever else to these guitars. And then eventually they just put down their guitars, leaving them to drone out, and just high-fived as many people as physically possible between the lot of them. Even the drummer decided to run out and jump in the crowd and high-five as many hands as possible. And just to note, like I said, every time I see them they get better, but this was a huge step up on the last show. It was a much bigger step up than I could have seen coming, and they were a great live band beforehand as well. So seriously, if you get a chance, check these guys out. Now, onto the headliner of the night, Gallows. Firstly, I just want to quickly say I've seen Gallows with Frank many a time, and I've also seen them with Wade many a time. However, I'm not going to get stuck up in that whole thing. I'll talk about that another time. I'm just going to concentrate on the show they performed Friday night. So to open the set, the band had some backing music which they walked out to, and then they kicked straight into Misery, and from the word go, the entire room lost their absolute minds. It was such an insane hour or so. They mostly just played through tons of songs, a lot of material from their new album. I believe they played 7 songs off their new album, and also they had some old stuff too. Admittedly, I'd preferred a bit more, but that's a set list choice, totally up to the band, and fair enough, they played their new material, it's cool. Again, like Rhino, they certainly had a lot of on-stage energy. They sounded and looked as ferocious as ever, and Wade, I think, every time I see him, I just feel like he fits in that little bit more with Gallows. Musically, they sounded decent as well, occasionally messing up because of diving into crowds and whatnot, but I think I can forgive them for that, really. I will say, I felt like I have seen them put more into their show in terms of energy, in terms of aggression and that sort of thing. However, the band did look really happy to be there, and they still looked like Gallows and sounded like Gallows, which is never a bad thing. To summarise, it was just a great night. I came away absolutely knackered, like most gigs, and with a slightly injured shoulder, but that happens, so oh well. I felt Brotherhood of the Lake deserve for their performance around a 5.5 out of 10. The performance definitely needs a lot of improving, but musically they sounded interesting. I will check them out. Gallows, I felt, were deserving of a 7 out of 10. It's not the best I've seen them, but still a great show nonetheless. And the surprise champions of the night were Feed the Rhino. I feel like they deserve an 8.5 out of 10 for their show. Wow. Just seriously, they're coming down to play the Borderline if you're in London. They're going to be touring their new record next year in February. Catch 'em. All I can say is you have to see this band if you're into hardcore punk. Simple as. Overall, it was a great night. I had a ton of fun, met some mates from previous gigs. Also, just on a quick side note, make sure you go to gigs and support live music, because it is one of the best ways to hear music and see music presented. It's also a great way to support the bands you love, and also in this age where there's lots of piracy and where you can get tons of music and not really get attached to it, it's a way to really get attached to the band and really show the band you appreciate what they do. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment and subscribe, and I'll catch you guys and gals later.